A developer needs to read data from invoices and then input the extracted data into another system. Each invoice can be processed separately, and the order in which they are processed does not matter. So, which type of design is best suited for this automation? Iterative process can also be the answer or can be the answer. However, it has the disadvantage that if a problem happens when processing one item, the whole process interrupted and the other items remain unprocessed. Transaction process repeats multiple times over different data items. So this automation is to process each repeatable part independently, which is the solution we need for the scenario given here. So this should be the answer. Library is not part of the transaction processing category, so this option is wrong. And linear process is performed only once, so this option is also wrong. So the answer is transactional process for this given scenario. A developer is building a process that needs to click an element, which requires a mouse over to become visible. However, the element does not appear with the default click setting. The input method for the click activity is hardware event. Which property should the developer configure to be able to click the element? Well, alter if disabled property. This is used for disabled UI element. Cursor motion type is the property that we need to configure for this question, and it should be set to smooth because using the smooth value for the cursor motions type, the cursor moves in increment using the smooth cursor motion type. So this should be the correct answer. Instant cursor motion type is the default option. So yeah, we should select smooth for this specific property of the click activity. Let's go to the next question. A developer created a process to capture caller data from a call center application. The process is designed to help a call center employee enter details about a call into an Excel sheet. So for instance, when an incoming call is received, the employee starts the attended robot. The robot contains four sub-processes. First, search for the caller by caller ID using an HTTP request and retrieve data such as name, address, email, and support history. Second, save the retrieved caller information in an Excel sheet. Third, in a web application, create a new history entry for the caller, upload the Excel sheet, and then submit the form. And lastly, send the Microsoft Outlook email with a confirmation. So which sub-process requires modification to some of the properties default values of activities to ensure it runs in the background? Well, HTTP is a background process, so this is not the answer. And saving information to an Excel sheet can be done in the background process too, so this is not the answer. Uploading an Excel sheet in a web application, it requires interaction with the UI element. So this activity requires modification. I guess this should be the correct answer. Um, Sending Microsoft email can be done in the background process as well. So yep, the answer is the step number 3. A developer is automating a process which retrieves technical product detail based on user input. The process steps include asking the user for a product name, using the input as a search string in an online catalog, scraping the structured result list, and the developer discovers that the title of the search result page is generated dynamically using the search string. Based on the graphic, what is the recommended way to ensure the robot locates the correct page? By the title of the resulting page, then that is something to do with the title selector. And most of the time, that selector is within the attached browser activity. So if there's something we need to fine tune here, that should be the attached browser activity. That's our first option. Next selector should not. Max retry number or max number is not. And data scrapping should be not as well. Yep, the answer should be the attached browser activity. After finishing a development, a developer observes in UAT that a selector corresponding to a UI element within an application change, and this breaks the automation and the automation fails to execute as expected. Based on UiPath recommendation, what is the correct sequence of steps the developer should take to debug the error and remedy the issue? Here, looking at this option, Well, every time we get an error, the first thing we should do is, of course, check the log so we can find out what activity is causing the error or the exception. And after we check it, we have to update the selector to make it more dynamic and robust. And then after we update the selector, we need to make sure that the selector is valid by validating it. And then as a good practice, we will be adding breakpoint to that activity. And after we add the breakpoint, we will run it in debug mode because even if you add breakpoint, but you run it in a run mode or not in debug mode, then the breakpoint will not work. So the last step should be run it in a debug mode to ensure the process runs without exception. So check the log, update the selector, validate the selector, and run in debug mode. All right. A developer plans to create a process to automate a web application in order for the robot to perform an action as soon as the element has appeared, regardless of whether other elements appeared or not, which property value should be configured. I think wait for ready is the property to be configured for this question. The interactive waits for all the UI elements in the target app to exist before executing the action. So I guess this is not the answer. The wait for ready none, it does not wait for anything except the target UI element to exist before executing the action. So my answer is, yeah, wait for ready none for this question. What is an advantage of using the default robotic enterprise framework template with Orchestrator queue? Well, kill all application workflow is only triggered after a system or application exception. This one is wrong. And then this one is incomplete because the framework also assigns in progress and failed transaction status. This one is not possible. And this is true. You can find the location of associated screenshot for failed queue item. So this option is the right answer for this question. A process based on Robotic Enterprise Framework 2021.10 runs on Orchestrator and an error is shown in the initialization state in the framework init all setting.xaml. The project has the default values for the settings in the config. What is a s- what is state of the job in Orchestrator? Well, stop a job in this state if it's stopped by using the kill button or by canceling it from the system tray before it finishes executing without throwing any error. So this is not the answer. Faulted is triggered if it failed to start or the process through an unhandled error during the execution. So this is probably the correct answer. And suspended is triggered to allow user intervention or completion of an intermediary process. I believe this one is mostly used in long-running workflow, so this one is not. And of course, successful is the state if the robot has executed the job correctly. So faulted is the answer for this question. What are the differences between send window messages and simulate type input methods? Well, send window messages is compatible with 80% of the application. That is correct. However, simulate type is not compatible with the 100% of the application. Simulate type is divided into two categories, the web app and desktop app. It's only 99% applicable for web apps and 60% for desktop apps. So this one is wrong. Send window message has hotkey support. That is right. And simulate type does not have hotkey support. That is also right. So I guess this is the correct answer. But let's check the other. Send window messages auto empties the input field. No, that is wrong. It does not auto empty input field. Simulate type does not auto empty the input field. That is also wrong. Simulate type does auto empty input field. Well, send window messages does work in the background. So this first statement is correct, but simulate type does. The first statement is not correct, but the second statement is correct. So this one is the best answer because both of the statement is correct. So let's check the next question. A developer has configured the activity project setting for UI automation and an element exists activity in the project shown below. Assuming the element is loaded, how much time will pass before the element exists activity is executed in debug mode? Well, the question is how much time will pass before. So the property we should look at is the delay before. And here are two types of setting, one for the run mode and another for the debug mode. So for the debug mode, it is 200 millisecond and this should be the answer, 200 milliseconds.